Hello.
And welcome to We're Not Blowing Hot Air, powered by Oxygen Plus. I'm Scott.
And I'm Lauren.
And we're here to help elevate your IQ on wellness and business stuff that's sometimes misunderstood.
Oh, like recreational oxygen?
Yes.
Let's get smarter with this week's guest of We're Not Blowing Hot Air.
Hey.
Hey.
There we go.
Hey, Scott.
Hey.
Happy birthday yesterday.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, yeah.
How's it feel to be, just one more day
How's
older?
it feel to be 29 again?
Yeah. Right.
Great, by the way.
Well, you look 29.
Thank
But
you.
I have no concept of how old people are. Whenever I look at them now, it's like,
yeah, it's hard
are
to
you
tell.
18 or 80? Right?
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
A lot going
No,
on.
I feel good.
Yeah.
But thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for the birthday wish.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And you got to celebrate it at the Vikings
Yeah.
First, I guess it wasn't a padded training camp. It was, they just had a light pad on, which
They had like a built-in, there was some sort of built-in pad into the jerseys.
macho.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were at the Minnesota Vikings training camp yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
At a Minnesota Chamber of Commerce event. That was really fun.
Great people.
Yeah. Lots of cool people to connect with and great view of the practice field. And the weather was great. It was such a great day to be there. It was so much fun.
Yeah. Are you a football fan?
I'm a Vikings fan.
You are.
And I'm a fan of anybody playing the Packers.
Oh, okay. So you like Minnesota.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm probably going to like them more when they win.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm like that.
But a lot of people are.
Okay. I'll go to any Super Bowl. Like, it doesn't matter who's
Sure.
playing.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind if you have some tickets.
Right
You know
on.
what I mean, or if anybody out there wants to give some to Scott and I and
Yes.
our families.
Yes.
For, that's not asking too much.
No, not at all.
I got a little thing here.
Yeah. What's going on over there?
Sorry. So if anyone's watching from home, on my lap here is Batman Buddha. I'm dog sitting, and he's an unofficial lap dog, and
Batman made it onto the podcast.
I just didn't want him to bark in the middle of it. So sorry. Not my dog. My dog.
Not even your dog.
Bark in a podcast. She knows better.
She's more well behaved than Batman.
It's great doing the show with you, Scott. I just want to say.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun working with you on it.
Oh, are we done?
Batman. Yeah, we're all done. This is it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Number 2.
It's our last show.
We're
2 episodes. We're done.
All right. Yeah. I didn't like you anyways.
Most people don't.
On this episode of We're Not Blowing Hot Air, we get schooled by Dr. Charles Meakin on why breathing, one of the most natural and automatic phenomena known to life, is sometimes so complicated and done incorrectly. Dr. Meakin, who has researched and practiced breathwork extensively, also shares the easiest and most important breathwork healthy people can make part of their daily routine. Dr. Meakin also breaks down why pro athletes like American professional golfer Phil Mickelson are making breathwork a top priority for athletic success. All this and more about the mysterious basics of breathing on We're Not Blowing Hot Air. Dr. Charles Meakin, welcome to We're Not Blowing Hot Air. Thank you so much for joining Scott and I.
Well, Scott and Lorraine, good to be here, and always eager to spread some positive thinking on health.
Yes, awesome. And we're so glad you're here to help us do that and learn a bit more about what's up with breathing. Before we get there, though, do you want to just give our listeners just a brief bio?
Sure. Well, the quick version, of course. So I'm historically a radiation oncologist, but always was more complementary and integrative minded. And in my 30 plus years of working at a big cancer center, tried to bring that to the clinic. And now more recently, I have branched off into metabolic oncology and serve as the chief medical officer of Care Oncology, careoncology.com. It's a virtual format where we see patients and offer 4 metabolically acting repurposed drugs to enhance their outcomes with standard of care therapy. And during those sessions with patients, We commonly talk about the whole gamut of things that improve one's performance and function, that also help their path with cancer care and resiliency and dealing with cancer care, and hopefully outcomes as well.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. What great work. That's amazing.
Well, it's been fun.
Yeah. I can imagine. Well, let's dive into it. We're talking about breath work today. And so why have the basics of breathing become so complicated? And why are most of us not breathing the way that we're supposed to?
Yes, it's kind of a conundrum why something so important and fundamental as breathing hasn't been better emphasized and reviewed. And it's only been recent with some of the authors and caregivers. I think of James Nestor with the book Breath, and his wonderful description of how we somehow became a world of mouth breathers, and some of the important strategies to help reverse that. And then, Dr. McGowan is also an expert in, I believe from Russia, the Butanko method of breathing, where other countries and cultures have actually greatly impacted, improved, maladies such as asthma or chronic COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, mainly through just mindful breathing, where you focus more breathing through the nose and less through the mouth. Ironically, through the mouth, you can move more air, but that can work against you in the normal restful situation. For example, through mouth breathing, you might exchange more like, 10 to 14, liters of air a minute. And that over breathing blows off more CO2, and that loss of CO2 and lower level of CO2 shifts the hemoglobin oxygen affinity curve, where it's harder for the hemoglobin molecule to release oxygen, at the capillary level. So by nostril breathing, where you have more of a 8 to 12 liter of oxygen exchange per minute, you tend to retain a little more CO2, which makes it easier to release oxygen at the capillary level to get the most delivery. And so, in my patient care strategies, I have sort of, the big six, and the B of the big six is all about breath. Number one, you want to mindfully return to, as a default, nostril breathing, which does a few things. Number one, doesn't let you overbreathe. And then secondly, when you breathe through your nose, you activate what they call parasympathetic receptors. Parasympathetic is the sort of tone of the body that favors more rest, digest, relax, and heal, versus the sympathetic, or people have probably heard of the run from the lion, or sort of the adrenergic response favors more, run from the lion or fight. So when you're in a state of nostril breathing, you're naturally activating your parasympathetic response. And that's why we were given the option to eat with our mouth and breathe with our nose, because when you're eating, you need to be in that parasympathetic response. And in doing that, you better deliver oxygen at the capillary level, and you better activate parasympathetic response, which also has dividends like activating nitric oxide pathways, which dilate smooth muscle, like the airways, like the blood vessels, like the digestive tract, which are all so important for what we spoke about: rest, digest, relax, and heal. So breathing is more than just a intake valve for oxygen and release valve for CO2. It helps modulate sort of the mode of the body, which is sometimes a blind spot for a lot of physicians and caregivers who don't think about it in that way.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, so it can help you stay calm, stay in a state of letting your body work kind of in the most efficient mode it needs to function in. Is that fair?
Yeah,
In a very
yeah,
simple.
and so ancient cultures, if you look at their pictures, they're most frequently positioned with their mouth closed, with a smile, of course, and sort of nostril breathing used to be the default. And some of the more well-written sort of paleontologists have noted how our mouth and jaw have actually shrunk over time as we breathe less through the nose and more through the mouth. And so it leads to, dentists and oral surgeons will tell you how just chronic mouth breathing dries the mouth, changes the microbiome of the mouth, and leads to a lot of problems there. In addition to overbreathing, in addition to not activating the parasympathetic side of us. And so it can be a whole health malady in itself. For cancer care, it's so important to stay in a state of parasympathetic balance, to stay in a state where you can best deliver one of the primary nutrients, oxygen, which if you want to get into the weeds a bit, most cancer scenarios thrive in a low oxygen environment. So the better we can oxygenate our normal tissues and oxygenate our tissue, or even our marginal tissues, the better we can keep our cells healthy and keep them optimally functioning with their own immune set points and surveillance systems. It's recently how interesting this has come up. This was never really talked about too much, and of course, a lot of the stuff, some of the biohacking community and wellness folks, see when they go to programs. It just recently came up on a grand scale. There's been a lot of articles about Phil Mickelson, who won the PGA, tournament down in Hilton Head, and how he's done this amazing pivot after the age of 50, where he's lost a lot of weight. He's, gained a lot of strength. He's got a new level of focus, and there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle that he's worked with. But the pivot, one of the pivots was a changing breathing style where he does either a 3-7 type breathing, where it might be 3 to 4 seconds inhale, generally, nose only, and then a longer, more prolonged exhale with sort of a kind of a pause at the end of the exhale. And that is really good for, number one, fostering that, once again, parasympathetic balance, which during a PGA final is really important as you sort of line up for those 3-foot putts that you shouldn't miss, that are so critical to winning a final. But he quotes how it has kept him very calm and relaxed under pressure. When one of the other wonderful organizations I've been able to participate with, I think you have as well, is the SEAL Fit organization put together by...
I did a SEAL Fit thing, Scott. Yeah. That's
and,
right.
And I don't remember.
I did a beach workout, right, Dr.
Right.
Yeah.
They call it the sugar cookie workout, where you end up with sand all over you, like a sugar cookie has sugar all over it.
That's not my new nickname, Scott. No. Sorry.
I didn't even think that, but you gave me a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, so if you remember, Coach Devine, or, probably
Mark Devine.
Yeah, Mark Devine. I forget what level of, in the Navy SEAL organization he got to, but one of his big teaching strategies is called box breathing, and this is called tactical breathing, where you try to have a, it could be a 5-second inhale, 5-second pause, 5-second exhale, another 5-second pause. And the reason this is taught to the Navy SEALs and also the people he's training to try to become SEALs is it really fosters focus. And the times they would use it when they were doing delicate work, or I don't know if that would be, on the shooting range, or a sniper trying to hold, his hand steady, or, diffusing a bomb, or whatever the wonderful, important things the SEALs do. But it is a critical tool in their toolbox to stay calm under pressure. And they use sort of what they call the classic box breathing. Which,
and it's the first thing they do, right? Like they see a threat, and the first thing they go to is their breath in their training.
Right. Tactical breathing, staying calm. And then from there, they can better make good decisions.
Well,
And staying.
Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. I just want to, at some point, I'd love to just like have Scott practice the SEAL Navy tactical breathing, the box breathing you're talking about. And we can all do it.
I can learn how to breathe like a SEAL.
I think it would be cool to kind of show the listeners like how it's done, like kind of hear it and try it. You know, hearing that the Navy SEALs do it, or even Phil Mickelson, you know, we're big golf people.
Yeah.
We should try one
classic,
of their things.
Like a typical, you know, the starter point is usually 4 or 5 seconds. Let's do 5 seconds. Now, the beauty of this is you get more into breath. You start realizing you can start breathing more in the 14 to 15 to 17 times a minute and really nurture your body with, once again, the most important nutrient, oxygen. And so, you know, on the Oura Ring, you know, which a lot of us are using today, I know I've had a good night when my heart rate is in the low 40s in the evening and my respiratory rate is in, you know, the 15, 14, 16 range. It means that I didn't eat too late toward dinner, you know, toward the sleep time, that I'm not stressed, I'm not fighting a fever, I'm, you know, well rested. And so that's a good metric that is starting to be identified in your general health parameter. But jumping into sort of the box breathing, it might be thought about as this, where you start with the inhale and it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, inhale, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, start, inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pause. As you can see, just in that 3 breath cycle, you probably started feeling things wind down. And you can kind of feel sort of the intensity level dial down. And for me, it's a good practice to do 2 or 3 relaxation breaths, which are some version of that, you know, 4 in, 8 out, or box breathing or tactical breathing, as it's called, before I start a new Zoom case, or in the older days, start a new walk through the patient door, because that, you know, tunes down the noise, allows me to be more present. And as you do that, you're more aware of body language, you're more aware of your emotional IQ versus sort of, you know, the story in your head, and you can serve better in a much better way.
Okay. So let me get this straight. So the simplest or easiest way, because, you know, we can be busy, we get too busy, but so you're saying just anytime you're going into something new, or when would be, how can you actually see like 4 deep breaths of box breathing actually like making a difference in your day-to-day life? Like what's kind of the minimal or the easiest, or really like the most important breathing? Like what need we be doing if we want to maintain that health?
So I think any point where you have a juncture or a transition point, like ideally when you walk through the door at the end of the workday to see maybe your family, you want to be more present. For me, is sort of today I saw 10 patients in the transitions between patients. That allows me sort of clear the slate and start over in a more positive, relaxed way, especially when you've done 6 hours in a row, like today and yesterday. The other thing would be, when you feel yourself starting to be triggered, a moment in traffic, the headlines that lead and bleed, say, okay, not going there. Close the mouth, make a smile, 2 or 3 relaxation breaths, whether it be box breathing or 4 in, 4 out, or whatever version works best with you. Now, as you start doing this, it becomes almost sort of a automatic reflex as you start to stay in that default zone through the day.
That's
And
awesome. How long does it take you to
Yeah.
get there? How long do I have to work at it until it's automatic
Right.
again? Because I'm
Well-
super lazy, Dr. Charles.
Well, no. And so I think when you look in a window or in a glass and you see your mouth like this versus with a smile, if your mouth is open, it's probably breathing. What I've tried to do to help with this, because I like to sleep on my back, is I put a piece of medical tape over my mouth. That sounds strange.
Like
that
James Nestor suggests.
Yeah, that keeps you in.
Did you
nostril
steal that
breathing
from him, or is that
No,
your?
I think that was around before that. And,
okay.
And you got to use the right tape, otherwise you kind of rip it off in the
Ooh.
morning and you kind of lose a
So
layer
medical
of your
tape?
lip.
You said medical tape?
I use like a more of a slightly stretchy medical tape
Okay.
that isn't like super adhesive.
Will it be okay on Scott's
okay.
beard and mustache?
Yeah, I can't be
Oh.
messing up the beard here.
Oh
There's-
yeah,
there's
so
a lot,
that-
there's a
can
lot
he-
of glory here that cannot get disturbed. Okay.
Is it worth mouth breathing if you have a beard or mustache you really like?
well, what you might do is also, I've also done this, is get a buff and
Mhm.
put it around this way, so kind of hold your mouth shut. You look a little bit like Little Bo Peep or something, but it kind of holds, puts a little light pressure on your mouth, so it doesn't
cool.
sort of, trapdoor open, as you fall asleep with your neck back. And it will also diminish the chance of, developing snoring habits. But so the other thing about nostril breathing and staying in that is the fault is it warms the air, it filters the air, it activates the nitric oxide parasympathetic pathway as mentioned. And, let's face it, in the COVID-19 era, one of the first, ways people get infected is in the oral mucosal tract. So the more you can, filter and defense it by nostril breathing, not that I know that for sure is a defense, but, as long as you keep those areas healthy, it is a better way to keep it out of your lungs, because you got built in the turbinates there to warm the air, and that's a big.
You're talking
sort of-
about nose hairs, basically, right?
Yeah, well, the
simple-
nose hairs,
Mhm.
and then there's folds in there they call turbinates,
Mm.
and underneath those is all lymphatic tissue, and it's a very vascular lymphatic bed. So that, that's why when you get a cold, your nose gets all blocked and swollen, because there's so much reactive lymphatic tissue in there,
Mm.
and so that's a
Interesting.
first line of defense. And so why not use that if you can?
Wow.
So
that-
there's
It's
Did
crazy.
you know that, Scott?
I did not. No.
He did research for this.
No,
Not
but
enough, apparently.
what I've been, as we've had this exciting view with the Tokyo Japanese hosting the Olympics, look at some of the athletes. I think many of them, I know one of the training strategies is to try to stay in your nose as long as possible. Now, when you look at the 200 meter, 400 meter sprints, they're opening up for bull right from the start. But the longer you can stay in your nose, the longer you can keep, good blood flow in the periphery and good muscle relaxation, the better your body's going to work. And
That's awesome. I mean, we
Yeah.
recently altered how we talk about how to breathe Oxygen Plus. Now we say that, well, first of all, exhale all the air out of your lungs
Mhm.
until you almost like are starving for a breath, and then and then press the trigger, put it up your face, and then inhale. But do it through your nose if you can. I mean, because it's like for reasons that this is very deep and more complicated than we've ever gotten into, but we knew nose breathing is more efficient and more effective. And that's why yoga, right, has been doing it that's
so
how
long.
yoga is like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yoga, mindfulness breathing and whatnot. A few practices that I use on a regular basis. One is sort of the Wim Hof breathing, which is very activating. It's rapid nose and mouth. And then another practice is what I call, I have a lot of biohacking toys, as you probably know, hyperbaric oxygen, ozone, saunas, steam rooms, infrared, pulse electronic, magnetic frequency stuff. But I haven't bought any of the expensive, EWAT therapies or exercise while on oxygen therapy. And one of the reasons is kind of Wim Hof is sort of a less expensive version of that. And then if you can biohack that a little bit as well by doing sort of an exercise routine. And when you exercise, you are creating an oxygen deficit in the muscles, and creating this basically goes down to the mitochondria, where they're looking up at you and say, send more oxygen. It's getting hard down here. And at that point, the microvasculature, the capillaries and the arteries that lead to them are sort of opening up full bore to get new stuff down there. And when you get to the maximum demand, then you can flush the system with, say, oxygen plus canisters, which, are very available, and, 99% oxygen, as well as medical grade. And that way you then flush the system with the most important nutrient that helps, heal things that were, on the marginal edge of the circulation, where good oxygen and good nutrients didn't always get to, as well as immediately reboots those areas. And there are more expensive versions of that where they create, big oxygen tents that then you switch between room air and full oxygen on a bicycle, and other versions of that as well. But this is something I do at home, after I do sort of a more high intensity exercise, flush the system. I also try to get upside down on an inversion table or just on a wall stand. And that way you then flush the brain with this, after a demand is created, with clean oxygen, and really help reboot the brain. And I don't always call it exercise while on oxygen therapy. I call it my brain clarity exercise. If I really need to get, like, have a long day and need mental, agility, that's a great way for, I call it instant clarity. And so that's another hack you can do that is safe and easy and inexpensive.
So work out really hard, like high intensity workout for 20 minutes or so, would you say?
Yeah, I would say, it might be at the end of a workout where you then do sort of, you could even do like the Sprint 8 protocol, where you might generally do a 4-minute warm up, and then you could then do 30 seconds of hard on a bike or a treadmill or a rowing machine. And then when you do the 30-minute rest, 30-second rest, so each cycle is like 30 seconds hard and then 90 seconds rest. And then at the first part of that 90-second rest, for that full 2-minute block, you do, maybe 3 or 5 big oxygen breaths with the oxygen plus. Okay. And then you do another 30 seconds hard, and you then go to 90-second rest. And that's sort of the second segment. And the Sprint 8 is 8 of those. So 8 times 2 minutes is 16 minutes. And then you do the 4-minute warm up, and then you can do a 2-minute warm down. So you might get 8 blasts that sort of reactivate the oxygen, reboot things better, heal tissues that are sort of on the marginal level. And once again, the Sprint 8 protocol, you'll feel great afterwards. But if you do it with oxygen enhancement or EWAT, it's really a powerful hit.
That's awesome. I mean, I didn't even know you used the product for that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Like, and that you were saying, just the analogy, Scott and I were talking about, we were at the Vikings training camp yesterday, and how like oxygen has been on the sidelines. Yeah. I mean, if you like football or Vikings, Scott liked it. It was, I loved it.
That was great.
It was great. Yeah. I'm learning to love football. So, but anyways, I mean, football players have had oxygen on the sidelines for forever, right? Like since football began. And people really got the connection, but you're saying it's like kind of an everyday use as well, that we can use it however we want, just because it's portable and stuff. And
it's
cool to hear that.
used to keep one, and sounds strange, but I used to keep one in the car. So when I would come home we frequently had meetings in Charlotte, and I would be driving back it's a 30-minute drive, back to where I live on the perimeter of Charlotte. And if I felt sleepy or tired, I would do 4 blasts, and it would just be enough to get me home, feeling good, keeping me clear, so I wouldn't have, a late night accident at 11:30 after a long work day. And of course, if you had a cup of coffee then or caffeinated drink, you'd be up till 3 a.m. But with the oxygen, it's just an immediate benefit, and it won't keep you up inappropriately at night.
Yeah, right.
Well, by the way, I do love coffee with oxygen, because is this true, Dr. Charles, that when you drink coffee, your capillaries open up more, and so when you add oxygen to that too, it's like an extra, like, hello.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of effects of coffee that are, from the polyphenols, and it can help the gut biome. And once again, Phil Mickelson, part of his pivot in, redo involved, coffee with clean fat in it and some other food medicines. But I like coffee in the morning because, number one, it has, it's the biggest source of polyphenols in the human diet. People drink coffee have, on general, longer longevity, and that includes all the people that are drinking, sweetened coffee out of a styrofoam cup, which we probably know could be improved upon. But when you do the caffeine too, that does have a slight temporary increase in blood glucose based on some recent findings. But then over long term, people who drink coffee have less type 2 diabetes and better insulin control, or less insulin resistance. So there are other factors that take place. And then its effect on acetylcholine probably helps with dilation of some of the blood vessels. So people see better performance, in sort of any sort of sporting event with coffee beforehand.
That's awesome. I might try out for the LPGA now, Scott.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know. But Phil Mickelson, so he's doing breath work. Do you know what he's doing? Is he doing the box breathing? Is he doing the
From what it
Wim
said
Hof?
in this recent New York, I think it was a Golf Digest article, he's doing primarily like some sort of extended exhale. I think it's probably something like the 4-8 or whatnot. 4 in, 8 out. And with a pause at the end of the exhale.
Yeah, that was my earlier question. How long until it becomes like absolutely your mouth? You're no longer mouth breathing; it's habit. You're now a nose breather.
I think, like any habit, they talk about the sort of the typical maybe 21 days to sort of really convert it. So the way to do it would be, you would want to have some constant messaging, maybe, a big picture on your iPhone of your nose, stay in your nose. So every time you open it up, you kind of go to a smile and try to go back to your nose. You put it on your mirror, on your refrigerator and whatnot. It does foster a lot of calming. And what I've noticed over the years is, we used to go to medical lectures when I was, working in the hospital all the time. And you would be surprised how many people in the healthcare field generally, really were heavy duty mouth breathers, and how struggling they were, just to do simple, put a chair down and sit on a table, sit at a table. And I have found that I've been proud of the fact that through breath hold techniques like what Wim Hof advocates, and where you do in real simple terms, and I'm not a trained Wim Hofer, and I'll declare that, but I've been using it for before it was sort of common knowledge, maybe 3 to 5 years. But real briefly, you do 30 breaths, which are kind of in nose and mouth, and then collapse out through nose and mouth. And at the end of that 30 breaths, you try to do an N expiratory, blow out all your air, and then go into a hold. And while you're doing that hold, you want to sort of not grit your teeth or bite your jaws. You want to float. And, I usually do some mindless thing like, ABCs or count. On his app, you have a sort of a counter there to kind of measure your time. I actually try to do I wouldn't call it mindless, kind of a series of prayer. I use it as sort of a meditation, intention setting time. And then after the kind of a initial hold, when I taught this when I was back in grad school last year, I usually tried to do 30, 60, 90, which I thought was pretty achievable for most people. And, if not, they could cut out early. But hold for 30 seconds with an N expiratory breath where you blow out all your air and hold, because when you blow out all your air and hold, there's not ready oxygen or air with oxygen in your lungs. There's some. Right. And then you do 30 more breaths. So when you're doing this rapid breathing, you're actually blowing off CO2 and creating a little bit of an alkalosis in your body, a little more of a base balance. And then as you hold again, and as you're holding, you're creating oxygen demand in your tissues. Sometimes you feel numbness in your hands and feet. Sometimes you feel that sort of air hunger as you're holding. The second hold would do 60 seconds. And then 30 more breaths. Once again, blow out all your air and go into the third hold. Try to do 90 seconds. And during that hold, once again, you're building up CO2 again after and that sort of creates a more acid buildup in your system as the CO2 that builds up. And that's what's telling your brain to breathe, not so much the absence of oxygen. And then because CO2 is sort of the rate setting measure in the system that tells us to breathe. And then you do another 30 breaths or maybe 35 breaths, blow out all your air. And then at this point, think about it. At that point, you've done 35 breaths or so. You've hyperoxygenated, good oxygen levels, but you've kind of done these rapid breaths. So you've blown off CO2. So you have a little bit of an alkalosis in the system. And then
And what's alkalosis for in like
a little more term? A little more base than acid in the system.
Okay.
And we've all heard that maybe when you exercise hard, you build up a lactic acidosis, more acid environment. So when you're in a state of alkalosis, you've neutralized any acidosis. And then you go into your favorite exercise. And I usually do sort of push-ups, and they're not the Marine or SEAL push-up where your chest hits the ground and your hands come off the ground. You do more of a quick push-up. And I try to do my Asian push-ups while breath holding, and usually do them in sets of 10. And then at 50, stop, kind of have to usually blow off more air without breathing, and then do the final 12. And then at that point, take some good breaths, maybe 2 or 3, and then try to get upside down on an inversion table or against the wall or just bending over with your head low. And you get this massive sort of delivery of oxygen to your brain. And you just, once again, that instant clarity. So that's something to do when you don't have the Oxygen Plus handy or you're just out in the yard. But that's a great sort of exercise. For one, you have depleted yourself of available oxygen. So your mitochondria, without doing a 2-hour bike ride or something, your mitochondria get a message for what they call mitochondrial biogenesis. So it gets a message to say, hey, we need to get more efficient here. We're going to make new ones or more of us. And of course, mitochondrial function and density are the key. They're the key to be an energy efficient in our systems. If it can make ATP faster, you can do more things. Secondly, as you get more comfortable with those breath holds, your parasympathetic tone gets more and more on that parasympathetic side. And when you have high parasympathetic tone, you tend not to overreact. If something doesn't go your way, you kind of stay calm. And so that default calm setting becomes much more easy and comfortable. And I've noticed in the last 5 years since I've done that, I tend to be, don't things don't, trigger me or get me too excited. You can stay calm much easier. And then, of course, your breath hold gets better. I think I sent you that video swimming underwater with O2 or without it. Your body gets much more efficient.
So those are the types of changes or improvements that you would see. So like for a guy like me, if I realize that I don't breathe properly, I tend to breathe very frequently and too shallow. If I'm focusing on something, I tend to hold my breath and not breathe. Are those the types of changes? Like if I wanted to start somewhere, right? If I wanted to say, okay, I'm going to set reminders on my phone, or I'm going to do this and that to make sure that I am taking those times to breathe properly. And then I want to know that, what I'm doing is helping improve things. What am I watching for? So is it things like that, like remaining more calm and even throughout the day? Or what would be some of those like kind of key indicators to know like, hey, you're making some improvements here?
So some of the simple things are some of the toys and tools that we have today, like the Oura Ring. You might notice that your heart rate, your baseline heart rate starts to lower, which is a great metric, for health and wellness. As your heart and lungs get more efficient, they don't have to beat as often, and because they beat more efficiently and exchange oxygen better. So sort of without having a bradycardia type heart block arrhythmia, which is a whole different discussion, but a trained heart will beat at a much lower rate. I'm sure some of the Olympians are in the high 30s, especially those swimmers, in their baseline heart rate, and then they don't have to beat as often. And one might say in somewhat of a comical way, but not too far from the truth, that you only have so many heartbeats in life. And if you can beat at a much slower rate, you'll get to a much older age. Secondly, looking at your respiratory rate in the evenings, on say an Oura Ring or some of the other Fitbit or Whoop, band that people wear, is seeing a slowing of your resting respiratory rate is an important metric. You may also notice mild, things like where you don't feel like you're getting as triggered in a challenging situation, a family situation, traffic situation, whatever, and that would be another metric. You can also get toys like a incentive spirometer, which is a $10 thing. They usually give it to patients in the hospital to help them really see how much they're inspiring, doing a deep inspiration breath to try to really pull that little ball up in this little measuring meter to see how big their inspiration is and try to get it up to the highest point. And that's another thing that, I used to give out to our lung patients and cardiac patients and cancer patients with lung issues to say, put this by your TV table and practice deep inspiration to make sure you're fully expanding. That will ward off, partial collapse of the lung where you can get a pneumonia, and just keep your lung tissue flexible, kind of like an accordion, where you fully pull it out and stretch those baffles to make sure they work properly. So yeah, those would be the 2 or 3 or 4 things to look for, and then ask the people that are around you, at work and at home, hey, am I breathing through my nose more often? What are you seeing?
Or am I sitting there with my mouth hanging open?
Bingo.
Like
And that's why it's so important to, I kind of say, every day you gotta clean the pipes and, in a detoxification pathway. And that's why it's so important to, drink a good 15 to 20 ounces in the morning to get a good flush of the urination.
Of water, right? Just
water,
not like
water.
a pint of vodka.
Yeah. And then to make sure you eliminate properly on a daily basis, so that your GI tract, gets cleaned. But the other two things for detoxification people forget about. Your skin is the biggest continuous organ in your body, and you need to, sweat and get old oils out. And so a good sauna, steam, or workout are so important. And after you work out and sweat, kind of take a few extra minutes before you put your clothes on, and then wipe the sweat down again and get that second kind of after layer of moisture off your body. And then, of course, breath. We get rid of toxins and byproducts of metabolism like CO2 in our breath. And so, if you got a blocked nose or a septal issue or some sort of breathing impairment, you want to make sure you open that up and clean house every day by sort of cleaning your sinuses. If you need a sort of a saltwater bath with a saltwater rinse of the nose, or I usually take a steam shower in some way, or just a shower and try to really get my nostrils fully open with maybe alternate nostril breathing, and frequently through the day your nostrils will sort of switch between sort of being more open on one side and the other side, and that's sort of a natural rhythm as you breathe. And I think that's in Nestor's book. But you want to make sure you really clean out your intake pipe real early in the day so you breathe well.
So I'm gonna start doing the Wim Hof exercise. You've inspired me, Dr. Charles, to do that. I maybe could we write it down and put it in the description of this podcast, like just what you do, the unofficial Dr.
And a link to the website, and they have on their app, which is called Inner Fire. They have, they will use the breath timer. It's a free available for that. I think they charge for some of the other instructions. And what I like is I tell everybody to have a metric of, am I getting weaker? Am I getting stronger? And, if you do your age and push-ups after you do the breath hold with Wim Hof, and you're always getting older, hopefully, you're going to be getting stronger. So that's sort of my check-in test for, I usually do it. It's kind of a hybrid exercise I do mainly on Friday mornings when I'm not doing some other stuff. So whether it's, if you want to do, air squats in your age, that's kind of hard to do because those are big muscles while holding your breath. Push-ups is a good one, or you can do mountain climbers where you sort of race your legs forward in sort of a sprint step.
I'll just do one of my Navy SEAL training exercises that I picked up.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
But no, that's awesome. What about, Scott's just had a birthday, so he's gonna have to do an extra whatever.
Yeah.
But what Scott has to do are two things now. He's gonna have to do the Wim Hof in the morning, and that's when you do it, right? Like in the morning, you're saying clean out that air pipe.
Yeah, because you will get if you did it like at 8 p.m., you would probably be activated to the point where you might have trouble getting to sleep. So just like you wouldn't want to exercise in the kind of late evening because that's activating maybe some cortisol bump as you do that.
Okay.
I like to mirror my exercise with your sort of natural rhythm with cortisol, so you get the benefits of it. Cortisol is a bit of an anabolic hormone in some way. It helps lay down muscle and new cells. And I'd rather do that when I'm asking my muscles to get stronger. So it makes new muscle cells and no foul balls. If you know what I mean. Foul balls would be, maybe a cancer cell or something like that. Oh, no, not a baseball.
I'm trying to love sports.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So Wim Hof in the morning, something like that in the morning, and then you do your you already have probably mastered nose breathing. So for us, we're gonna start putting however it works into our life, put like a nose on our phone. I love that suggestion, like image of a nose.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna could we have you back one day after we've done our own version of James Nestor's like breathing or your version of how to breathe better through our nose?
Sure.
And we can tell you all about our experience because that's interesting.
Yeah.
And you'll be interesting, Scott, you may find that sort of, and Loren as well, that your chest capacity increases and that you you stay in you've stretched some of those muscles. And when, when you do this big inhale, it should be sort of a rolling one where you first pull down with the diaphragm and sort of expand there. And then the final part will be the mid and upper chest. So it's not like pulling the front chest out. It's diaphragm followed by the upper part of,
and then up here.
Bingo.
I'm already doing it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and always do it in, where you're sort of in a neutral position where your ear, shoulders, hip, and ankles line up, and you're not, back or forward. You want to keep that neutral position where, your profile is best, and your posture will stay neutral into your 60s and 70s and 80s and whatnot. So yeah, it's a good, easy. I primarily would do it when I couldn't work out. I'd be in a hotel room. You could do Wim Hof. Felt great. If you didn't sleep well, you'd still feel great. And you couple that with, maybe some face immersion into the ice bucket as you get out of the shower, and you got a good day brewing.
I'll just be brewing the coffee. I can't do the cold shower thing. I just can't turn that. I can't do the cold. I don't know. Should we talk about that one day? Should we talk about that?
So that's another parasympathetic enhancing thing, because the more you do it, as you rewire your brain that this isn't going to kill me. So the parasympathetic enhancement,
it probably won't kill us.
No.
Yeah, is
okay.
The two main practices is cold immersion, because historically, in primitive wiring, we think, oh man, this isn't going to be good, or breath hold. And so as you sort of do both of those, and then in the words of, Scott Carney, throw in the wedge. The wedge is just a way to help you do something hard that you're, previously uncomfortable with. And you rewire to the point where, hey, this is good. This is helping me. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. This cold water, or this cold air, or this cold face in the bucket of water is actually going to be, health enhancing. And so the more you flip that switch to kind of think that way, the easier it gets, and the more you sort of drift into parasympathetic.
Okay.
I'm doing the cold shower thing now.
Okay. Good for you.
I'm going to do it. Paul Newman, by the way, I heard he used to put his face in
oh yeah.
You hear that too?
Oh.
Really? Yeah, and he was old.
He lived to a long age, and he did a lot of great, we all have
the cookies. He went organic before it was cool.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And, all the money that has gone to good causes because of the Newman dressings and stuff.
Yeah, Paul Newman made it on our podcast.
Who would have expected that?
I love it.
Who would have expected that?
But Dr. Charles, go ahead. Sorry.
And I was going to say, and Phil Mickelson, and
he's
James
coming
Nestor,
on.
Everybody's coming on our
everybody's
podcast
coming on the
now.
podcast.
This is
everybody.
It's all thanks to you. I mean, honestly, we're so grateful to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. It would be incredible to have you back after Scott gets his mouth and nose in order. So,
well, you monitor that, because I know you
got a long way to go.
I'm not in charge.
Long way to go.
I'm not draw a line at that, but I will tell him if his mouth is hanging down too much, because you said I could.
And there's great resources for this on the web, and the beauty of it is, like when I was back at Notre Dame and did this, extra year of entrepreneurial school, we kind of brought it up with some students. And after one class where we had like an hour break, I said, some of the other students said, Chuck's going to teach us the Wim Hof. And 40 kids did it.
Oh,
and one of the young men, Jeff, he played for Notre Dame's football team the year before. He was the punter. And he reeled off 75 push-ups while holding breath. And I was like, did you ever think you could do 75 push-ups? He goes,
wow.
No, I mean, my tops was historically maybe 30 to 40. And those were really, I had to really push myself. So, and then a lot of the gals were just so surprised they could do, 10 to 20. And they, that was an exercise they weren't used to doing. So there is some great mental momentum enhancing factors that go along with this. And once again, when you're keeping the score, and as you get older, and in the patients that I work with, you're a cancer patient and you're dealing with treatment or a difficult disease, yet you got the paradox that you're getting stronger. That's a big momentum boost, and that makes things happen. So that's my final message. You can get stronger at any age. You can get stronger with cancer at any age. So don't underestimate your abilities.
Wow. I'm inspired. Seriously.
Yeah.
I know that, historically we forgot that water was an important nutrient, and now we sort of get it. I think in the years to come, we'll realize that oxygen, especially with the wildfires and troublesome air we have and whatnot in our environment, hopefully we'll correct that as a country and as a world. But in the meantime, hopefully people realize the importance of oxygen and breathing and use the products needed to kind of nurture their body.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right on.
Absolutely.
Dr. Charles, again, thank you. Why don't you let people know where they can learn more about what you're doing currently, either with the oncology work at Care Oncology Clinic or through, I know you do, is it Coach It Forward with Chuck? Chuck It Forward with Coach?
Chuck It Forward.
Chuck, what is
always,
it? Okay.
The beauty of the name Chuck is it's a noun and a verb, and unfortunately it rhymes with a lot of things too. But
which you can say on this podcast.
So my work life is primarily now called careoncology.com, careoncology.com. Once again, we do virtual consults offering a repurposed 4-drug protocol that dramatically enhanced the survivorship of glioblastoma. And then we expanded it to all types of cancer and layer it on with standard of care. Today, I saw 9 patients. Yesterday, I saw 11, the whole gamut of different cancers. And we have 6 oncologists, 6 oncology nurses, and a whole team. It's a very low-cost platform. Once again, we see everybody on Zoom. So we cover all the US and part of Canada. And then our parent company started in Europe, and they cover England and Europe. My charity website, where I house a lot of the information that I generate so I can send people there instead of creating another email or something, is coachitforwardchuck.com, coachitforwardchuck.com. After I retired from the big hospital work in 2019, I started coaching as a charity cause and thought I could help people impact their health there. Just recently, getting so busy with Care Oncology, I've had to stop doing the charity coaching, but the information and content are there. And every month I write a new sort of article and blog on some topic of some choice and whatnot. So that's kind of really how to find more information on this. I do have stuff on breathing there, and careoncology.com have a lot of stuff on cancer and cancer care.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Charles, again. It was a pleasure talking to you, and thanks for your time.
Go rate and review We're Not Blowing Hot Air so more people are aware of wellness and business stuff that deserves more oxygen. And subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an exciting episode.
Thanks for listening. But before we go, check out this episode's featured artist, Becky Rae Dalton, with her song, Sunny Day.
Just chilling on the banks of the river in muddy waters, just trying to find a way you last to steal the day back from my past. Just wanna float away, leave it all behind. The river helps me to unwind. Go outside and play a sunny day. Responsibilities, oh, they get the best of me. They get my youth, they get my money. Oh, they do it so easy. Just